There are mornings when you open your eyes and find no reason to leave the bed, no enormous tragedy, just a quiet emptiness. Everything looks like everyday work messages, small talk, but inside you know something is slowly fading. You are still alive, but not truly living. I've been there. I woke up in the middle of the night, wondering when I lost myself. Not because someone hurt me, but because I did. I kept running and trying until I forgot to stop and ask, where am I even going? The more exhausted I became, the more I turned to what people call self-care, breaks, music, and long trips. But every time I came back, the emptiness was still there. Then, one morning, while reopening meditations, I read a line from Marcus Aurelius. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. And I realized no one had stolen my peace. I had stopped training my mind. I had let the world enter my head before I said good morning to myself. The Stoics never spoke of self-care as indulgence. They talked of self-discipline, of strengthening yourself to stay steady amid chaos. For them, self-care wasn't an escape, it was preparation, not to feel better, but to stand stronger. I began with tiny things, not touching my phone when I woke up, taking slow, deep breaths to hear myself again, writing down whatever cluttered my mind, then watching the day unfold with more awareness. No one noticed the change at first, but I did. My mind became quieter, my eyes slower to judge, and most importantly, I started respecting myself again. If you've ever felt like your life is on repeat, filled with endless noise and responsibilities that make you forget who you are, this video is for you, because the 5 habits I'm about to share won't just help you improve yourself. They will help you reinvent yourself so that 6 months from now, you can look back and realize I've become someone else. Not because you changed everything, but because you started with the most minor, truest things. Don't expect miracles. Stoicism doesn't promise that. But if you stay till the end and practice these daily habits, I promise you'll see real change, not outside, but in how you see yourself, remain calm amid the noise, and face life without hiding anything. This journey doesn't begin with a grand goal, but with a quiet morning. Because before you can reinvent yourself, you must learn to keep your mind still before the world wakes up. Habit 1. Keep your mind still before the world wakes up. Morning is when the mind is at its weakest. The world floods in the moment you open your eyes and touch your phone. Messages, news faces, voices rush in, and within seconds, you've already forgotten why you even woke up. I lived like that for years. I'd open my eyes and immediately start reading the news, checking work, and scrolling through social media. Every morning felt like a race. I was already exhausted by noon, even though the day had barely begun. I used to think I lacked motivation, rest, or luck. But what I really lacked was stillness. I had let the world occupy the space inside me before stepping into it myself. One morning I stopped. I didn't turn on my phone. I didn't open the curtains. I just sat at the edge of my bed, took 3 deep breaths, and listened. Thoughts are still rushed in, things to do, people to meet, and old mistakes. But this time I didn't try to push them away. I let them come then go, like water passing through my hands without holding it. And strangely, after just a few minutes, everything slowed down. I didn't feel perfect peace, but I felt calm enough to live another day. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." From that moment, I understood that starting the day isn't about jumping into work. It's about returning to yourself before the world calls your name. I've kept this habit every morning. 2 minutes of stillness, sometimes 5. Some days my mind is quiet, some days loud, but that doesn't matter. What I've learned isn't how to empty my mind, but how to observe without reacting. When a thought appears, I say to myself, I'm thinking about that. That's it. No fixing, no running. Gradually, this small act changed everything. I began to notice when I was exhausted and when my mind was exaggerating. I learned to listen to others without being pulled into their emotions. I realized that many things don't need an instant reaction, and silence is often the most complete answer. Mornings became the most private moment of my day when I could be me, not anyone else, not any role. I stopped fearing the new day. I started feeling grateful for the chance to begin again. If your mind feels tired, try this. Tomorrow, when you open your eyes, don't touch your phone. Just sit and breathe. Don't chase peace, let it find you. Each breath, each quiet minute is a small step back to yourself. And if this speaks to you, leave a comment below as a reminder to yourself. I will begin each day in peace because others do not give me peace. It's what happens when you stop letting the world invade your mind too soon. Keeping that morning stillness is like building a thin wall around your mind, not to separate you from life, but to help you walk into it with steadier steps. Because once your mind is calm, you'll realize something else is waiting to awaken, not from outside, but from within your own body. Inner peace is only the beginning. The body must also be reminded that today is a new chance. When you learn to awaken it with presence, every movement and action becomes part of that same quiet awareness. Habit 2. Awaken your body. When the mind is still, you hear something other than your body. The part of you that you usually only notice when it hurts, when it's tired, or when it doesn't obey. But the body isn't a machine to control. It's a companion that quietly endures every thought, worry, and pressure you pour onto it daily. In the past, every morning I would jump out of bed quickly. Everything had to be in motion: coffee, emails, work. I thought I was being disciplined, but I was treating my body like an old car. As long as it ran, I kept driving it. One day I realized my body no longer responded to my mind. No matter how hard I tried to focus, my body felt heavy, my shoulders tight, my breath short. I had forgotten that the body too needs to be awakened, not commanded. Instead of jumping up one morning, I sat still on the bed. I placed my hand on my chest, took a deep breath and relaxed my shoulders. I didn't exercise. I just gave my body a chance to wake up with me. It took less than 3 minutes, yet the entire day felt different. I worked more slowly, but with more focus. I spoke less, but with more strength in every word. I began to notice that the mind follows when the body is calm. Seneca once said, "The body is the protector of the soul." You cannot have a steady mind while living in an exhausted body. Each morning, the simplest gift you can give yourself is to let your body breathe like a living being, not a tool. Breathe deeply, stretch your arms, roll your neck, touch the ground, not to burn energy, but to return to presence. When you do this, you'll discover a different kind of energy that doesn't come from coffee or fast music, but from being here. Every slight movement becomes a greeting to yourself. I'm still here and have the strength to begin again. Morning should not be a race. It should be a meeting between a calm mind and a body ready to walk beside it. That's why the Stoics began their days with awareness, not haste. They knew that the world leads those who rush out the door, while those who step out in awareness lead themselves. I once thought strength meant doing more. Now true strength is knowing when to pause. It's hearing the smallest signals from your body: shallow breath, tense shoulders, trembling hands, and adjusting in time. When you wait, you don't become weaker. You're protecting the very thing that allows you to go the distance. If you're hearing this, try it. Don't stand up right away tomorrow morning when you wake up. Sit still, take a deep breath. Feel the air move through your chest, your stomach. Gently roll your shoulders, stretch your arms forward. That's all. Then begin your day. No need to push or motivate yourself. Just call your body back to you. And if you've ignored your body for too long, write a small reminder in the comments. I will begin my day by returning to my body. When you say that you're making a promise to the one companion with you all these years, this body, the most loyal friend we so often forget to thank. When you learn to awaken your body with presence, you'll notice your energy begins to shift. Not the loud, fiery kind, but deep, calm and clear. From there, you'll start to see something else that also deserves your care. Something that most of us let leak away every day without realizing it. It's not in the mind, nor in the body. It's in how we live, how we give, and how we protect what's left. Because if you don't learn to guard it all, the peace you've been building will soon disappear. Habit 3. Protect your energy. There are days when you don't do much, yet by evening you feel completely drained. Not because of the work itself, but because you've spent your energy on things that didn't matter. A pointless argument, a repeating thought, a negative friend. The body isn't tired, but the mind feels empty. I've lived through that phase. I was always busy, but never really knew with what. I kept jumping from one task to another, opening one mental window after another, and by the end of the day, even when nothing significant had happened, it felt like I had survived a storm. Then one day I came across a line from Marcus Aurelius. We love ourselves more than others, but care more about their opinions than our own. That line was a mirror. I realized I wasn't tired from doing too much. I was exhausted because I kept giving away my energy where it didn't belong. From then on, I started practicing something I call energy inventory. Throughout the day, I would ask myself, does what I'm doing now make me feel lighter or heavier? If the answer was heavier, I stopped. Sometimes that meant turning off my phone for a few minutes, stepping outside for a deep breath, and sometimes choosing silence instead of explaining myself. Not to escape, but to protect the energy I needed to live with meaning. The Stoics believed that energy or inner strength is one of life's greatest assets. Epictetus said, "Wealth does not consist of having great possessions, but only having few wants. When you need less, you keep more, not only in possessions, but in peace." Most of our exhaustion doesn't come from a lack of energy, but from not knowing how to preserve it. Every time you get pulled into an argument, you give away energy. Every time you try to please someone, you give away energy. Every time you replay the past, you give away energy. And before long, you're empty. The sad truth is, you did it to yourself. When I started observing this, I saw those leaks more clearly. A single message from someone could drain me for hours. A small task could pull me out of the present moment. Once I noticed that, I learned to keep my distance, not out of resentment but out of protection. Because no one can stay centered if they let everything touch them. Protecting your energy doesn't mean closing yourself off. It means being selective. Choosing who gets to enter your space, what deserves your attention, and which conversations truly matter. Like the gatekeeper of a fortress, not everyone is allowed in, not because they're bad, but because you know this space must be guarded. I've come to understand that peace doesn't come from avoiding problems, but from knowing what has the right to touch your mind. Once you master that boundary, the world can be loud, but within you it stays quiet. If you often feel tired without knowing why, pause for a minute and ask yourself, what am I losing my energy to? Please write it down in just one line. Then see how many doors you can close that no longer need to stay open. And if this resonates with you, write in the comments as a personal reminder. I will protect my energy as something precious, because your energy is your way of existing. Lose it, and you lose the ability to live truthfully. Once you learn to guard your energy, you'll notice something else sometimes. The person draining you the most is yourself through self-criticism, blame, and replaying old mistakes. Outwardly, you may be calm, but inside a quiet voice still whispers, "You're not enough." That's why, after learning to protect your energy from the world, the next lesson is even more profound. Learning how to speak kindly to yourself. Habit 4. Speak kindly to yourself. I used to be extremely hard on myself. One small mistake and I could spend hours replaying it in my head. Forgetting a message, saying the wrong word, or making a small error, I would repeat it over and over, as if I had committed a terrible crime. I thought that was discipline, meaning I was serious about self-improvement, but in truth, it was a form of self-punishment. The Stoics taught us that we suffer not from events, but from our judgments about them. I wasn't suffering because of the world, but because of the voice inside my head that never knew kindness. It compared it, criticized it, demanded, and the cruelest part was that I believed it. Until one morning, I noticed something small. I spilled coffee on my shirt and instantly said to myself, "You're so clumsy." Then I paused. If someone else did that, would I say that to them? The answer was no. I would smile and say, "It's okay, just a small thing." So why couldn't I speak that way to myself? From that day I began a new practice, one breath and one kind sentence. Whenever that inner critic appeared, I took a deep breath and whispered, "I'm doing my best with what I have." Not as an excuse, not as self-praise, simply as acceptance of being human. When you speak kindly to yourself, you don't become weaker. You're creating a safe space within. Just as a tree needs soft soil to grow, a person needs gentleness to mature. No one truly grows in a mind that constantly punishes itself. Psychologists call it psychological safety. The Stoics called it logos, living in harmony with reason and nature. And in that nature lies imperfection, slow steps, and imperfect days. If you never allow yourself to make mistakes, you'll never stay calm enough to get things right. It took me years to understand that self-blame never leads to discipline. It only leads to exhaustion. Proper discipline comes from self-respect. When you believe you deserve to be treated well, you naturally want to live better, not out of fear, but of appreciation for yourself. I remember Seneca's words, "We suffer more than once for the same mistake, once when it happens and again every time we recall it." When you stop after the first time, when you forgive yourself, you reclaim control over your mind. That's what Stoicism is truly about. Mastering your response. If you're hearing this and realize you also have a harsh inner voice, try something small. The next time you forget, fail, or feel weak, don't say, "I'm terrible." Say, "I'm still learning." Just that one sentence, but it changes everything. When I started doing this, I still made mistakes. I still forgot things. I still felt tired. But instead of wasting the whole day criticizing myself, I took a breath, relaxed my shoulders, and moved on. Not because I became stronger, but because I stopped wasting energy fighting myself. If this speaks to you, leave a small promise to yourself in the comments. From today, I will speak kindly to myself. Please don't treat it as a pretty phrase. Treat it as the beginning of a new relationship between you and yourself. When you learn to speak kindly to yourself, you begin to talk differently to the world. You judge less, you listen more, and your heart grows lighter. And from that lightness, you'll notice something strange. When you're peaceful inside, the world outside seems less harsh. because the world often mirrors your inner state, and you'll realize that kindness doesn't stop at words. It's also how you end your day and look back at yourself, not to grade but to understand and let go. Because in the end, every act of mental training leads to one truth: learning to live in harmony with yourself before you sleep. Habit 5. End the day with gratitude and letting go. There are nights when you lie in the dark, but your mind glows like a lamp, not because work is unfinished, but because your heart hasn't rested. Old thoughts, forgotten words and moments you can't change or return like echoes. And even when your body is tired, your mind refuses to sleep. I used to be like that. I tried to lull myself to sleep with music, my phone, anything to fill the silence in my head. But the more I tried, the more awake I became. Eventually, I realized I wasn't struggling with insomnia. I didn't know how to let go. The Stoics saw every night as a time for the soul to reflect. Seneca once wrote, "When night falls, let us ask ourselves, have I lived today in harmony with my nature?" Not to criticize, but to release. Because only when the mind is laid down can the next day truly begin. Since understanding that, I've built a small nightly ritual. Before sleep, I sit still for 5 minutes. No phone, no music. I stare into the dark and think of 3 things I'm grateful for. Sometimes it's a good meal, sometimes a simple thank you, sometimes just the fact that I made it through a difficult day without breaking. At first it felt small, even forced. But soon I learned gratitude isn't an emotion, it's a discipline. A discipline of the mind that teaches you when to stop. When you choose to see what's good, your mind begins to exhale. And that exhale is the thin line between anxiety and peace. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Do not let what you cannot control disturb your rest." I remember that line every time my mind begins to stir. I've learned to tell myself, "Today was enough." It sounds simple, but those words freed me from the obsession with perfection. Each night when I say that, I feel a part of my energy return. Because letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means accepting that you've done your part. The rest belongs to tomorrow. If you're hearing this, try it tonight. Before you sleep, don't open your phone. Just breathe deeply. Recall one small thing you're grateful for and whisper, "I've done enough for today." Then lie down, not to escape the world, but to return to yourself. And if this brings you even a bit of calm, write in the comments as a personal reminder, "Tonight I will be grateful and let go." You don't need to say it for anyone else, just for yourself. Because gratitude is how you end the day in light, no matter how much darkness it held. And letting go is how you forgive yourself so that tomorrow you can live without yesterday weighing on your shoulders. The Stoics never asked for an easy life. They learned to walk through hardship without letting it poison their hearts. And each night you practice that same virtue when you give thanks even for one peaceful breath's serenity amid imperfection. And when you've kept all 5 of these habits, keeping your mind still before the world wakes, awakening your body with presence, protecting your energy from what drains you, speaking kindly to yourself, and ending your day with gratitude, you'll realize you're no longer the same person. Not because you've become someone else, but because you've returned to the calmest part of who you are. That is where this journey leads. Not to change yourself, but to rebuild quietly, piece by piece, the person you were always meant to be. The journey back to yourself. When you begin this journey, you might think you're searching for a new version of yourself, someone stronger, disciplined, and peaceful. But in the end, you'll realize that reinvent yourself doesn't mean becoming someone else. It means returning to the deepest part of who you already are, the part that got lost somewhere in the noise of life. Each habit you've just practiced isn't a formula. They are small doors that open into your inner stillness. When you keep your mind still before the world wakes, you learn to own your mornings, not letting the world define you. When you awaken your body with presence, you learn to honor the vessel that carries your soul. When you protect your energy, you're learning to choose what deserves your time. When you speak kindly to yourself, you learn to befriend your mind. And when you end your day with gratitude and letting go, you're learning to close the day with peace, not regret. These aren't 5 steps to change your life. 5 breaths bring you back to living truthfully. The Stoics never sought perfection. They trained daily not to control the world, but to control themselves. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." So if you ever feel lost, don't try to become someone else. Just return to these 5 things. They won't make you different. They'll remind you of who you truly are. I know life isn't light. Some mornings you wake up heavy. Some nights you close your eyes and peace still doesn't come. But you don't need to be perfect to begin. Just choose one small habit and keep it every day. Because proper discipline doesn't come from motivation, it comes from self-respect. Stoicism doesn't teach us to run from emotions. It teaches us to walk through them without losing ourselves. Each time you sit still, breathe and observe, you're practicing what philosophers have done for thousands of years, training the will, the mind, and the art of enough. And when you practice long enough, you'll notice the change isn't loud. It happens quietly in ordinary moments when you choose silence over argument, decide to step back instead of being swept away, and choose forgiveness over self-punishment. That's when you become unrecognizable, not because you've changed, but because you've finally become whole. If these words reach you, leave a reminder for yourself in the comments. I choose to rebuild myself quietly every day. Write it as a promise not to me or anyone else, but to yourself, who's learning to stand firm in a loud world while keeping a gentle heart and a calm spirit. And if you wish to continue this journey of discipline, serenity, and self-mastery, subscribe to Sovereign Stoic, so you don't miss the next Stoic lesson. Every day we'll go deeper into living slowly yet powerfully, peacefully yet clearly. Remember, peace is not something you find, it's something you forge every single day. And when you've forged it long enough, you'll no longer need to search for it, because you will have become that peace yourself.